Tower defense has always been a really odd but charming genre of games. It's been consistently static over the years, rarely ever changing, and usually being about ally towers versus enemy troops walking towards you. Ranged tower combat and close-up troop combat were always exclusive to each other, and there wasn't much experimentation up until Kingdom Rush, which made it such a revolutionary title for many people. The ambition of this combination made for such a satisfying gameplay loop. Just adding one more option led to thousands of more playstyles, and tons of replayability at that. But of course, no system is perfect, and there came lots of balancing issues. One of which got me thinking of my favorite Kingdom Rush game, Frontiers, and how its barracks stack up today. If you've ever been frustrated with your barracks in Frontiers, I think I've found a couple of reasons why. So I'm just gonna do a complete 180 and dive deep into what's going on with these guys. So to clear up confusion, I put them into 3 different categories. There's versatility, there's how enemies counter them in this game, and then there's other Kingdom Rush games and how their barracks work. While versatility is not something you usually demand from a barracks unit, I'd like to start here, especially with the Templars. This extra health doesn't really cover much for Templars. It should have been the base stat, honestly. The bleeding is probably the best thing you could have, but otherwise it's not all too much other than dealing with armor. And then there is the Grail. Templars are underwhelming, and can even rely on luck sometimes, but what about Assassins? While Assassins are generally better, there are of course a few pitfalls. While of course they do counter a couple of situations with their dodge ability, and they can be a bit helpful with extra gold, there's not really a whole lot in their general attack power without their insta-kills, and I don't typically like using insta-kills. While both of these barracks are decent at stalling, that's pretty much all they're good for. They don't do well with specific enemy types. And speaking of enemy types, while this can be debated a little bit, it almost seems like Frontiers has some of the most anti-barracks enemies and traps possible, full of area damage, long-ranged attacks, and tons of magic. And of course everyone's favorite enemy, these fucking things put Desert Archers and Vampiresses to shame, and that's more of a design fail than anything. Of course these aspects exist in the remaining Kingdom Rush games, but the barracks handle these situations very differently. Since this pointer kind of meshes into both of these categories, I'd like to point out that Frontiers features the only barracks without a projectile. Barbarians have axes, Forest Keepers have their spears, and Elite Harassers have their bows. As a result, the barracks and Frontiers don't exactly have the integrity and power of Elite Harassers, Forest Keepers, or Paladins. Without being able to counter that many situations, or even deal with flying or ranged enemies, Frontiers barracks, in a vacuum, are just generally some of the worst barracks ever, and even in their own game, they tend to struggle on occasions. So that's most of what I've discovered upon replaying Frontiers. Please note that this is to be taken with a grain of salt. While the barracks aren't exactly balanced, the rest of the towers are, and this doesn't really spoil Frontiers as a game, really. So there you are, Frontiers Barracks. I'd like to thank you for getting this far. Speaking in videos has always been a little bit awkward to deal with, and I'm still trying to get the hang of it, but I think if I perform this more, I'll start to get the idea. Tower defense is one of my favorite genres, yet I haven't really done it all too much respect yet, and I'd like to change that sooner or later. Expect more tower defense in the future.
Rockets explode! Holy shit!